Hello everyone! In this tutorial, I will cover the basics on how to create an R Markdown file. Once you open the file Introduction to R Markdown, what you see is this. On the left side, you're gonna have a kind of text file. On the right side, you're gonna see the rendering of that text file, basically like an HTML version of it. On the bottom is just a record of the build of that file done by the program. Since this file covers some basics of R Markdown, let's first start by mentioning what is a Markdown. So Markdown is just a way of adding to a plain text document some formatting such as lists. You can emphasize text. You can also format headers, codes, links to URLs, and so on. So it is a way of writing an easy to read and an easy to write plain text that can be formatted, converted into a HTML. Now, R Markdown is a file format for making dynamic documents with R. And an R Markdown document is written in Markdown and contains chunks of embedded R code, like this document that contains the basic of R Markdown. In our document here, we have some text, and when it is rendered, you will see some text, chunks of code, and other elements. You can use a YAML to control how R Markdown renders your RMD file. RMD is the extension of an R Markdown file. A YAML header is surrounded by a pair of dashes like this. You can specify the title of your document. You can also add author and date. You specify the output type of your document. In this case, this document will be rendered as an HTML document, which is a web page. You can also specify a theme on how the document will look. With this theme, my output document will look different from a standard document. The theme adds blue font to the title and headers of the document. Okay, now let's talk about R package. Package is a collection of R functions, data, and compiled code with specific functionalities. There is a set of standard packages which are considered part of R and automatically available as part of it. To add more functionality to R, we will need to install R package. CodeCalc already includes a variety of non-standard packages available to the users of the system. But there will be instances that we will need a package for our lab that CodeCalc does not include yet, and we will need to install that. Once you install the package, you need to load the package into your document. So if the package is not part of R, is not part of the base R, we need to install. In most of the cases, CodeCalc already did that for us. And we have to enter a command in the RMD file to load the package to become available in the system. To load a package, we need to run a chunk of R code. Our R code is identified by 3 backticks, followed by a pair of curly braces with an R inside that stand for R code, the specific R code, and to conclude again 3 backticks. In this example, I'm loading the package neatar, which basically just extended the basic Markdown syntax to include chunks of R code. Okay, now let's take a look on how to format text in the RMD file. Sometimes when we write in the RMD file, we want to include some comments for ourselves to remind things that we did, but you don't want that to show in the output file, to be rendered, to show in the text of the rendered file. If you want to just add comments to some part of the text, you can use the syntax. So basically, this is an HTML way of writing a comment that will not be displayed in the final version of the document. Anything that is written between the dashes of the syntax will not be displayed. I know right now you can see some rendering right here, but let me point out that CodeCalc kind of auto-save all the documents, so any modification you do, it kind of auto-save. Also, any modification you perform in the document, few seconds later, it will auto-render an updated version of that. If for some reason the updated version done to the document, the output document, does not display as expected the code that you just changed, what you can do, you can just press on the button build, and it's gonna render the document. You can see that on the bottom here, the build log is gonna say it's rendering, and it goes through the process, and then the updated version manually requested from the system to be done is gonna be displayed on the top. Okay, so I wanna see the part where this comment should not appear. You can see the comment in the RMD file, in the text version of the file, but it should not appear here among the text of the output file. So let's scroll down. So notice that I'm put side by side. So this part he say compare this line here with the RMD file. So this is the part that you see here in red color, orange, kind of orange, not red. And below that, it should appear this will not be displayed in the output file. And right after that, plain code blocks appear, which is this header right here. Okay. Okay, again, this is just a way of adding some comments to the text part of your RMD file. Again, you don't need to memorize that. Whenever needed, you can just come into those documents and copy and paste, and then render that that file, and you're gonna see that that particular chunk of text will not be displayed in the output file. Now, next, if we wanna just include plain code blocks, what does it mean? There is a way of displaying blocks like code blocks with just text that will not be evaluated by R. Basically, it's like, hey, here's a R code, but the system is not going to evaluate, it's not going to run that, it's not going to compile that code. Okay, so again, we saw above that if I want to load a library, a package, I need to use the 3 backticks followed by color braces with an R inside, the code, and then again conclude that with the 3 backticks. Notice that I do want to include a code there, but I don't want the code to be evaluated, so there is no curly braces with R. But when this part is rendered, you're going to see the chunks of code without being evaluated. Okay, so because this is a text file and formatting text is important and how it's going to be displayed in the rendered version, the output version of the file, we need most of the time include some headers. The way we include headers is by using pound signs. So if we use only one pound sign, that's kind of a first level header. You can see that the font is bigger than the other headers. A 2 pound sign give a second level of a header, and 3 pound sign a third level of a header. You can do 4, and I believe up to 5 makes a distinction. We already have there that, for example, the header that says headers is being displayed here. Okay, you can see that the header plain code blocks is also being displayed here. All right, so now let's take a look at how to emphasize text. Sometimes we want to make our text to be italic font. Sometimes we want to just make that bold. So we can do that by, surrounding the word that we want to make italic with asterisk, Or if you want to make the font bold, we surround the word with pairs of 2 asterisks. That is an alternative version which is using underscores. So here there's an example read in the R Markdown, but let me create another one. So let's say I wanna in this text the word, let's say the word math to be bold. So I'm gonna surround the word by 2 asterisks on both sides, so math. You can see already that even in the RMD file, it's already showing bold font, but you need to conclude that, otherwise it's gonna make everything bold after that. So you can see here that the word math is surrounded by 2 asterisks on both sides. I believe that CodeCalc already kind of updated that. So you can see that the update is still not as I expect. So let me run the code. Oh, now it auto-updated, and now it is really showing the word math in bold font. Okay, sometimes we want to include lists in our documents. The way we can do that to include an unordered list is by adding asterisk before the item that is going to be rendered as a list with bullet marks. You can already see that here in the rendering. And if we want to include some sub items, we include some indentation with the plus symbol in front of the sub item. So we already see the rendering on this side. Okay, so let me give you another example here. Let's say I want to make a list of what to buy in a grocery store. So I want to buy some laundry detergent. I also want to buy, say, some sugar. But for sugar, I actually need 2 types of sugar. So let me give some indentation with the plus sign, brown sugar, and regular sugar. Okay. The rendering is still not showing here completely. Let's build, and it should update. So now you can see an updated supermarket list that I just created, which is unordered. The order is not important here, but you can see that each of the items is preceded by a bullet. Now, if we want an ordered list, right? So the order is important. So first, second, and third element, all you need to do is to add the numeration before the items in the list. And again, if you want to include some also some sub items, you can do that by adding the plus sign with indentation in front of the sub items. We can see here that this list will be displayed. So the code is exactly the same. You can see here that the code and how that is really going to be displayed. Okay, next we're going to see how to create hyperlinks in our document. So we basically surround the word or phrase with brackets, and whenever we click on that word or phrase, it will take us to, let's say, a website. In order to do that, we provide then the link, the address to the website between parentheses. So we can see here that the word QCC is between brackets, so that is what's going to be displayed. And if you hover the mouse on top, that means we have a hyperlink. You can see different color of the font and how it changes when we put the pointer on top of the word. So if I click right now, it's going to take me to the QCC web page. Let's go back. Okay, so let's do another example here. Let's say I wanted to include the word CodeCalc in this document, but I want to also have the word as a hyperlink to the web page of CodeCalc. So we're going to include this word between brackets. You can see already kind of change, right? And between parentheses, we're going to include the address to the web page of CoCalc. I don't see yet that update in my rendering, so let's build. And now I see. So I can see that the word is on a hyperlink. So let me click on that to display that it indeed takes me to the CoCalc's web page. One of the important things for our labs and writing assignments is that we need to embed our code in our documents. So now let's take a look at how to do that. As I mentioned before, you include the R code, specific R code between 3 backticks, followed by a pair of curly braces with R inside the code, and conclude again with 3 backticks. So in this code here, first let me reload my page. Okay, back to the output file. So in this example here, we see that there is a command called summary. So basically that gives the 5-number summary for the data set, and the data set is called cars. Cars dataset is a built-in dataset in R. It comes with R, and there are other available datasets in R as well. So summary cars display the 5-number summary, and the dataset contains 2 variables, speed and the stopping distances for the car, and you can see the result, the 5-number summaries for each of these 2 variables. Here's another chunk of a code, basically just to evaluate the multiplication of 2 times 3. And the result is that in the output file, you're going to see what is the code being evaluated and the result of the code that's being evaluated. Also notice that we can add comments inside the codes. We can add comments by using a £sign in front of the comment. And here you can see that that part is not evaluated. Now let's take a look at another example. So I start with the 3 backsticks, the curly braces, including R inside. Then the code will be there is a data set called air quality, and in that data set we have New York air quality measurements. Let's take a look at this data set. The data set is big, but let's take a look at just the beginning of the data set. So I'm gonna use the command head, and then between parentheses I'm gonna give the name of the data set, which is air quality. And let me now close this. Okay, so this is a chunk of our code. Let's build and see what's the result. So here is the code, and you can see that the output, just the first few rows of this data frame, contain variables like ozone measurement, solar R measurement, wind, temperature, the month where the measurement took place, and the day of the month. Okay, sometimes we want to kind of prevent R of showing the code itself and just present the final answer. For example, coming back here to the previous chunk of code, we can see that if we add the parameter between the braces, the curly braces, we separate by comma and then add the parameter echo false. Instead of showing the command and then the result that is coming from that command, echo false, we're going to prevent to show the command. So let's run that again. Okay, you can see now that there is no 2 times 3. It doesn't show the code. It prevents showing the code, but the result is still there. Okay, so this is for simple codes like that, where you actually want to see what is the original code. It's not very useful, but this parameter echo equals false is very useful if you are dealing with figure or plots, okay? And that's what we see here on the bottom. So we have another R chunk where echo equals false, default is true, and then it is plotting the cars data set, okay? So the outcome of that is this plot, okay? So this data set is being displayed like a scatter plot based on the two variables given in the data set. And finally, let's talk about some what if I want to include in my output file some math equation, some math formula. Obviously, we can do that. The way we do that is by using Latex Syntax, which is basically whatever is the syntax. I put that surrounded by $signs. So here's one example of that, where the formula is for the area of a circle. Sometimes we want to put those formula, the math equations, in line in the middle of a text. And sometimes we want to just display as an equation separate from the text, okay? So if we put in that inline, we use $sign on each side of the syntax for the equation. And if you want the equation display, we put $signs on each side. So let's try one example. So, and again, this is not the R code, it's just me including in the middle of the text. So there is a text here, and then I'm going to include some equation. The equation is the formula for the circumference of a circle. So the circumference equals 2 pi r. Let's close this with a $sign. I don't think it rendered yet, completely not yet. So let's build. Okay, so you can see that on the same line as the text, we have the formula for the circumference of a circle, but displaying that separately. Using equation display, we can do the following. So I'm just gonna copy and paste what I already did here. Just gonna add extra $sign on each side, so it becomes the equation display. And now let's build to render the result. So you can see that this is in line, $sign on each side. So you can display that together with text. And if you want to have an equation display for that, you use $2 signs. Okay, so with that, we conclude this tutorial on the basics of R Markdown. So basically, now you're kind of ready to actually do your lab and write assignments